Hey everybody, can you hear me good?
Yes, I can hear you. Derek, can you blur your background, please? I
Yes.
can see that you are in a car. Okay.
Okay. Just give me a second here.
You- Don't you have any specific room to sit?
I don't have a room because I had to take this. Um, yeah. Can you? Am I blurry now?
Hey,
Do
Corey.
you
Good morning.
do you want me to try to go into a different room?
Nope, nope, nope. We are good. We are good. Okay. Hey, good morning, Corey. How are you?
Morning, how are you?
All good, all good. Actually, Joe is on the road today. He is traveling, so that's why I thought to bridge up the call. So
Okay.
here is
Appreciate it.
Derek. Okay.
Hey,
Yep.
how are
Thank
you?
you.
So Derek,
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. How you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
So thanks for taking time to meet with me today, Derek. Obviously I've got a copy of your resume here, but I'd love to hear a little bit more in your own words, sort of what you're doing and what you're looking for in your next role.
Well, right now I'm working at RB. I'm the iMac project coordinator, and basically what I do is a lot of project iMac work, where any laptop deployments that we work with, we ship out all the laptop deployments for the entire company. I pretty much have a business system analyst background, I would like to say.
Okay.
I'm kind of looking for a forward thinking company. I worked with before on the API team, and my job is very siloed at C. So it's I pretty much just deploy the laptops and do project coordination.
Okay. So in your next role, you said that you're looking for sort of the forward looking. What does that look like for you? What are you kind of thinking about when you
Kind of an ego
consider
free
that? So
environment, an environment where I could kind of continue to use cutting edge technology, much like the gateway API tools that I was using over there at time. Looking to
got it.
build with a
Okay.
team that's I guess working on the pretty much the edge of technology, I would like to say.
Makes sense. So let me tell you a little bit more about the role, a little bit about the team, and then we can kind of jump in and feel free to stop me if you have questions, if you have you're kind of getting stuck on any of the things. So
Absolutely.
from a team perspective, the way that we're divided up is we're aligned to a particular business group, and so our business group is covering HR, legal, public. It's not the full AI breadth in well, it's actually a really small footprint.
Okay.
Um, so my team is responsible for a relatively large chunk of applications, but that large chunk of applications, we really only focus on a handful of sort of most of our time is spent on like some key applications. And so while there is a really long list, it's actually sort of a shorter list for what we do. This particular role is a level two role, and so we are responsible for production application support. We have
Okay.
a level one team where issues will begin, and if they're not able to address the issue, then they would escalate it to our team.
Okay.
So that's kind of how work is finding its way. And that's really more of sort of the unplanned side of things. We also have scheduled work. So there's a change, if someone needs something done, that sort of thing, that would potentially land directly on our team. So
Okay.
that would be another piece of it. And then the last one that comes into play is going to be things like project work. So This will be projects that are either identified at the enterprise level. So, security may come along and say, hey, we need you to do this thing. So then, we jump and we do it. It might be because one of our key partners says, hey, we need help with this. And so maybe we'll work together. And then the last item would be things that I sort of self-identified, like, hey, we think we need to move forward with this particular item. And so then we'll launch a project for that.
Okay.
So that kind of gives you a high level of sort of, where the team exists and what we do. Any questions on that?
What would you say for the biggest? What would you say would be the biggest pain points in the work that you do, and some things that you're looking for in the next candidate in regards to what are some of the pain points that you would like to have resolved?
Yeah, I would say that one of the big challenges that we have is that the work that comes in is sort of all over the place. And so one of the issues is that if there's not great documentation, we end up spending a lot of cycles kind of trying to peel that apart and figure out, where we need to spend our time. And I would say it's really easy to get into the minutia of, hey, I know how to fix this, I'm going to do this. And like that just becomes this sort of permanent band-aid instead of actually fixing the root cause of what the problem is. So I would say that like that's the biggest pain point. And the thing that I want to see in a candidate is sort of that drive to like, okay, well, how do I start to recognize some of these patterns, and how can I drive some of these patterns towards permanent resolution? And some of the times that's not in our hands, right? Like
Right.
we don't actually touch production code or anything like that. And in, a lot of these cases, there's some permanent code fix that needs to occur. And so, some of that is, influencing without actually having the authority to do so, right? And so you're partnering with these teams so that they understand, hey, why should we care, right? Well, why do we want to fix that?
Okay. And would you say what would be what would you say the learning curve of the position would be in terms of expectations within the first 6 months, 12 months, things of that nature?
I mean, I would say that there's actually a constant challenge in the role to keep up with the latest technologies. So because of the fact that we're dealing with such a large swath of applications here, and they're all changing over time, nothing's staying stagnant. Like that's the thing that it's not even in the first 12 months, like for the lifetime of this role, there's always going to be this sort of situation where you got to figure out, how can I get up to speed on this new technology? How can I learn about this thing? And some of it is really just sort of on the fly. I wouldn't say that there's like you have to have these, 3 technologies under your belt, because those 3 technologies in 3 months won't be the things that you're spending most of your time in, right? Because you will have kind of solved the big core problems in that space and then moved on to the next one. And so there's really sort of this ongoing mindset of, okay, how do I figure out how to stay in front of that, and how do I, keep myself apprised of, whatever the next new technology is going to be, and how can I become an expert in that space.
Okay, so basically it's one of those environments. I'm assuming to be a Scrum environment where you're kind of, I don't know if you're a Game of Thrones fan, but you're gonna have to kind of piggyback onto all kinds of different emerging technologies. You got Lord Snow over here, you got King's Landing way over there.
Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely the case that it's no 2 days are the same. Like it really is the case that, you wake up, you have sort of your day planned, and maybe it goes the way that you've planned it some days. But I think more often than not, it's, oh, I got to deal with this other thing instead. And so then that ends up being how you spend your day.
And I actually like I like an environment like that. I like a dynamic environment. When I was doing some support for medical imaging software at you might have a Docker or a Kubernetes cluster to go down, or you might have somebody that's not able to see their DICOM images on the X-ray. So that is something I do enjoy.
So So why don't you dig in a little bit here on, some major issue that you've dealt with in the past, and I want to try to better understand, how you've handled that type of situation.
Absolutely. I actually can give you an example when I was doing Citrix administration at Syntax. Um, there were several different contracts as if you haven't heard of them, Syntax is a managed service company in the Midwest. We dealt with state departments, federal departments, and also local medium-sized companies. For example, I was a person that was handling a lot of the managed service projects. I got a lot of managed service experience. And so there was an issue one day where, you kind of get these grand buffet if you say different plans. A person might have a platinum plan, so that covers a certain amount of the servers. Well, one of the servers was not covered by the plan because the client did not elect to get coverage on that server, but we still monitor all the rest of the servers. So this entire server went down. So the client was naturally upset. They said, "Hey, you guys should have, let us know about this." And I had to calmly explain to him, "Well, sir, this was not included in part of the plan. We do monitor the underlying servers, but this specific server, you guys had explicitly let us know that you did not want this server covered." So with that server going down, they lost a lot of production. Now it wasn't something that we did that was incorrect, but my theory with a project or with a piece of technology is, even if it ain't my fault, it's my fault. That's how I take it. I'm not looking at it as, oh, I just passed the buck on to somebody else, even though I know that it wasn't done incorrectly. This wasn't
Sure.
something that he did himself that was wrong. This was people above him that said, no, we're not paying for it. But him being a
Right.
system administrator, I said, you know what? We'll take some of the heat for that. What we'll do is maybe we could just cover that server from now on. I said, now, we didn't know that it went down because it wasn't monitored. But at the same time, we don't want you to take the brunt of it, because you being an IT person, you probably had already suggested that it should be covered and you were told no.
Right.
So under your better judgment, if it was in your hands, you would have been able to say, well, yes, I'm going to do it. Now, should they have done it before? Yeah, it probably would have saved them a lot more money. But they didn't want to do it. So I said, well, what we could do is we'll go ahead and cover the server. And they actually covered some of the insurance to get that production back up, because they lost a little bit of money. So sometimes I run into situations like that. Hopefully that's a good idea. Is it just not just from the technical approach, but just from the people approach. I try to look at problems like mazes with people, relationships and things of that nature, because technology is technology. It's going to break. But,
Sure.
Being able to talk to people and work through those technologies, that will pretty much, resolve the problem, or get it to a person to resolve the problem.
Absolutely makes sense. So let me ask you a follow-up question. So how do you manage, multiple priorities when you're dealing with something in this, sort of high pressure environment, where you kind of have to pick and choose? Like, what's your methodology for kind of walking through that?
Well, I guess maybe from an iMac perspective, I'll give you where I am at RBC. You might have somebody that you have a VIP. Some of the VIP people, well, we all want to get everybody their laptops, but sometimes you might have high earners, or you have VIP people, and they're at the edge of the ladder, and they might have a laptop where they say, well, he needs his laptop faster than everyone else. Now, you might have where an entire system went down and people cannot log into their VDIs. So I still want to give him his laptop. But if the whole company's down, I'm quite sure that CEO is going to say, well, you know what? Give me a loaner, but I want you to focus on those 15 to 30 people where the network was down. Now, I don't have any access to the network because I'm not on the network team. But we still get some of those. We still have that talk on the IT floor where people might say, well, hey, all these VDIs are down. I know that somebody's going to walk up to me and ask some questions. So the managers are naturally probably going to say, well, you might want to direct that towards getting their resources get the VDIs back up. And then what we can do is we'll give you a loaner. And soon as we're done, because we're looking at 30 users, you might have portfolio managers. That's $3-4 million on the table.
Sure.
The CEO, he wants his laptop, and I'm going to give it to him. So let me see if I can work and give him his loaner. And then simultaneously, while we're working with the network team, let's get these VDIs up, and I'll work on this asset here.
Got it. Makes sense. So let's shift focus a little bit away from the dealing with real-time issues to the observability side of things. So
yes,
do you have familiarity with any specific observability tools, anything that you use in your space today or have used in the past to really kind of help to stop issues before they're occurring?
Well, I could say I didn't do a whole lot of proactive root cause analysis when it came to the API gateway team, but what we did is we saw stuff happen after the fact. So some of these issues, it could have been PKI, or it could have just been a server that went down. I didn't really know because I'm working with API payments and PCI compliance. But what I could say is a lot of people just went straight to the GUI and said, oh, it's not working. What I like to do is we use Splunk and Postman. I like to go into Splunk and kind of dig down into the logs to see what could have happened. Now, that might have been a situation where I could see something where there was root cause. I didn't really know what some of those logs were. I was just to gather some of the API logs if an ACH payment went down, and then I I send that over to the software team, and then they work with that. But in terms of observability tools, Splunk was one thing that I used. I used that at also at Optum.
Got it. So what did you like and not like about leveraging Splunk?
Splunk, sometimes there's too much and then there's sometimes too little. What I liked about Splunk is it gave me the direct error once I was able to drill down. So if you ever watched the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, it's called he's going inside a virtual machine and inside a virtual machine and inside a virtual machine. I like that part. The only thing that I didn't like about Splunk is the initial body of data that it gives you. Unless you kind of know what you're looking for, it's just going to be like a big giant maze. But yet and still, once I came up with a template, there was a command line that I use for example, if it's a certificate that had an issue or an error, and I could gather those logs from there. I rarely just went into the GUI. Some other guys, they just want to go into the GUI and say, oh, that's an error, copy and paste that. And I say, no, let me drill down into Splunk and find out exactly what probably happened. And if I don't know what happened, let's see if we can find somebody that might be able to kind of help me read some of these logs and see what happened.
Got it. So one of the challenges that we have is that we get into situations where we have a problem and we're kind of still figuring the intricacies out, but then we have to start communicating out to folks. So how do you work to communicate technical issues out to both technical stakeholders as well as non-technical stakeholders, and executives? Like what's your process that you sort of figure out, okay, this makes sense for this audience, but not for this. So how do you go about that?
I try to avoid jargon. I try to look at it as what I call an ocean view and try to avoid a lot of jargon with a lot of the executives. I worked with at Wells Fargo, I worked with the Treasury Department a lot of times, and they weren't really the most technical people. But then when I started working with the project manager, sometimes I would, if I have to open up a bridge and just give them a high level, piece of information of, okay, what's going on, and getting those parties involved that might need to know that information. I try to avoid getting just everybody. And I don't mean, I'm not trying to discriminate, but let's get all the key people that could resolve the issue. And then let's talk to the decision makers. If they all need to be on, so we'd have these scrum meetings. And the scrum meetings would include the initial technical team, but then for the broad overview. So if they're getting ready to do if they're getting ready to launch a new API or a new ACH payments volume 2.0, or we're migrating, then that would get communicated out to somebody else, especially an outage. Every now and then now we dealt with outages, especially with United Health Group. I dealt with a tool called Grafana. That's similar to Splunk, but it's mainly from the monitoring side. So I would have to, if it's an outage, I would have to communicate that to the team. And then, I'll send the logs over to the appropriate sources, and then I'll get on a bridge. So, usually that was on the weekend. For some reason, the production didn't go down too much during the week because they already did, testing during the weekend. But there was bridges from time to time on the weekends when I did rarely work on the weekends during that time.
Got it. Well, Derek, that is all of the prepared questions that I have for you. I appreciate you answering my open items. As we wrap up, is there anything else that you have for me? Anything we didn't